I imagined everybody doing kung fu everywhere. No, it wasn't at all the way I imagined it being. You know, when you come from the West, you just imagine China just being this completely foreign place that's not really relatable in any way.
Human is human. We share the same things as well. Before we start today's interview, please have a short self-introduction and who you are and tell us your life here in China.
My name is David Clink. I'm from Canada, specifically from Ottawa. So I'm from the capital. I've been in China now since 2004, which means 18 years. My main life has been running an English training center in Guangzhou. So we train adult students to spoken English. Now I have a recording studio here too. So I do music, English training, and exercise.
What brought you to China in 2004? Why did you come to China?
I think I needed more from my life. So I went to Europe to kind of discover myself. I was in Europe for 1 year, just traveling around. I was hitchhiking, so going from town to town, just standing on roads and then meeting people and then staying with local people. And then I noticed in Europe, probably there were a lot of languages, and a lot of the languages there were similar to the languages I spoke at the time, because at the time I spoke English, French as mother tongues. I think I was attracted by languages, and then I said, I got to learn a language that's different from all these European languages. And then I was thinking, where can I go? And I thought, where's the farthest place in the world where I could learn a new culture, a new language? And that at that time I was living in France. So that year, it just happened to be the year of China in France.
Some diplomatic relations between China and France, you mean?
Yeah. So when I came to China, it was the year of France in China. And so there's China everywhere in France at that time. And then, well, China's about as far as you can get from Canada. So let's go. So my plan was to come here for 6 months, master Chinese. Just get it perfect, make it speak perfect Chinese after 6 months, and then go back to Canada and start a normal life. And didn't happen.
And now from 6 months to 18 years.
Yeah, it's crazy the way life
works. I like the story. I really like the story. Actually, before you come to China, what do you think China is like?
I had different images of China. I guess
Mysterious country?
Definitely mysterious. I imagined everything in China would be different from the West. So I imagined that probably the number system would be different. And it is different because you guys do ones and we do thousands, so it's different. I imagine the calendar being different and everything just being completely different. The mentality being different. I imagined everybody doing kung fu everywhere, arriving in Beijing and then having big statues of leaders everywhere with machine guns and things like that. I remember thinking that. And then when I got to Beijing, just being completely surprised. But no, it wasn't at all the way I imagined it being.
Yes. So I think I asked this question actually for a lot of foreigners living in China. What do you think China is before coming here? And I got a lot of interesting questions. Some of you are just like yours. I thought Chinese people all play Kung Fu.
Yeah.
I said, okay, thank you. But we do know how to play Tai Chi because we have this PE lessons, but we are not like Kung Fu masters like Jackie Chan or Jet Li, right? But thank you for this kind of praises. And also people would say, I have no ideas before coming here. But when I'm here, I think, wow, this is a totally different culture because most of them are from the West. And this is kind of like a collapse or a mix of West and East. So that is I think it is the most amazing thing, right?
Yeah, it is nice because it is very different from the West. But at the same time, when you come here and you live here for a while, you see that life is still life. People are just people. People have families. They want to take care of their kids, and people watch TV, and people hang out with their friends, and they talk, and they have a drink, and it's not at all. When you come from the West, you just imagine China just being this completely foreign place that's not really relatable in any way. But when you come here, it couldn't be more relatable in so many ways. So it's really nice actually to realize.
I like this one. Yes, I really like your words. Human is human. We share the same things as well. So what do you think has changed the most over the past 18 years? Whether in your life or whether in the society, what has changed the most?
You mean apart from my beard starting to be a little bit white, which it looks like on the video there.
Besides that.
In China, I think so many things have changed.
For instance?
It's not like Western countries where, the culture stays almost the same and the architecture stays almost the same and, they don't build that much. When I came to China, in the center of Beijing, within like the second ring road, for people who don't know Beijing, that's like really the center where all the buildings are very low and people still live in traditional style houses. There were still horses and carriages. People come in from the villages with watermelons on their horses. When I was there, a horse died on the street in Beijing because it was too hot.
Really?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was terrible. But now China has completely modernized. I mean, it makes the West look like a joke. The changes in infrastructure, I think it's probably the fastest change in human history, I would say, of any place, anywhere in the world at any time in human history. I think the changes in the past like 20 years in China are probably number one. It's totally modernized, and people's behavior has also changed. When I came here, you'd often see people like spitting on the streets, not waiting in lines. But now everybody stands in line, and nobody even questions that as a thing to do. No more spitting on the street. And it's so nice to be part of that change because, if you live in a Western country, you're born and then you just kind of go through and then you die and then it's more or less the same thing. But like in China, everything is constantly reinventing itself. And it's really nice.
Yeah, what changed the most for yourself over the 18 years?
Well, when I came here, I had hair.
I like this one. I like this one.
I would say, apart from just like learning the culture a little bit, I think I've probably become a lot more open-minded about a lot of things than I can imagine I would have been if I would have just stayed in one country and just only seen that, to see that there are different kinds of ways of living. As a human, there's so many different ways for us to get through life. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that's changed about me.
I have the same ideas or same feelings whenever because I learned English as a foreign language when I was in primary school. I think a lot of English or foreign language has been a part of the kids' life since we were 3 or kindergarten. So I think the reason why people started to learn foreign languages, or for myself, I would say, I want to learn a different culture. I want to embrace the world, and I want to be open-minded by learning a language and to know more about different people, know more about different cultures, right? I think this is a really magic and I should say it's very exciting thing to know someone who is different, something in common with people.
Absolutely. I think it's the biggest advantage of first learning a foreign language, which is super important, but then also being in touch with people from many different countries, not just one.
Okay, so how many languages can you speak?
English is my father tongue. French is my mother tongue. My father always spoke English. My mother always spoke French. So that's what happened there. When I was between 3 and 8 years old, I went to German school. So I learned German every weekend. And then in college, I learned Spanish. And then I lived in Italy for a while. And in Italy, I learned Italian. And then I lived in China for a short time. And I learned Chinese. So basically it's 6 languages, but I don't speak them very well anymore. Now I speak English, French, and Chinese well, and the other ones I'd have to kind of relearn a little bit. I speak some Cantonese.
Okay, your Chinese is excellent. You can understand a lot of idioms. You can know a lot of Chinese people saying or online trending topics.
Well, yeah, I speak Chinese quite well because I've been here for 18 years and a lot of my life here, and most of my friends here are Chinese, so most of the speaking that I do here is Chinese.
Okay, so basically 6 languages. Let's say 6 languages. So what do you think it's the secret of language learning, or how do you learn different languages?
I guess different people probably learn different languages in different ways. So I don't want to judge too much, but for me, whenever I learn a language, it's very important for me. From the first day I start learning the language, I train myself to think in the language. I never learn words. I don't like the idea of learning words. I've never ever gone through lists of words and memorized lists of words. I can't do that. But what I do is I learn simple sentence structures, and the sentence structures become more and more complex. But I try also, if I'm walking down the street or if I'm in a situation or if I see somebody's face and I see a story in their face, I try to think about everything around me in that language. So I'm not constantly translating. But when I talk to foreign language speakers, I see often you speak to them in English, and then I can hear them translating into their language in their mind. And then they're thinking about the answer in their language and they have to translate back into English. I think that's first, you'll never speak well that way because you're not getting into the mentality of the language. And the mentality of the language is very, very, very important. Second, you'll never speak very fluently that way because your mind is thinking in a language that your mouth is not speaking. So I think that's very, very, very important. Even if you can just say, like, you want to open a door. Well, say, I'm going to open the door. But don't tell yourself that, just say it in your mind. It's like muscle memory for your mind also, not just your mouth.
Do as the Romans do, right?
Yeah, thinking, but that's something that people don't see you doing, right? And they don't hear you doing. It's a very personal thing. So when you're going around, you're just walking down the street, well, your mind is thinking, but you're actually, by thinking in a language, you're training yourself to just separate it from your mother tongue, which I think is very, very, very important to have the different languages in different parts of your brain. It's quite easy to do also.
Okay,
Yeah.
so since we've talked about language learning, and I know that you are also good in music because you are a music producer, you know a lot of instruments, right?
I play a lot of maybe 20 different kinds of instruments. Yeah.
Ooh. Now, what do you think is the secret of learning things? Whether in languages or instrument or in your lifestyle or in school, what do you think is the most important thing in learning?
For me, it's super simple. If you want to learn something, you should spend less time trying to learn it and more time actually doing it. Because I think I can learn by doing things, but I always make mistakes. And you make a mistake and then you just do it better next time. And you actually learn very quickly and your mind can absorb all the new information by actually experiencing things. I think experience is so much more important than theory in so many things in life.
Like you are traveling a lot to different countries. You are living in China for 18 years and you are learning so many things. How is your reactions of your parents or your family members?
It's probably complicated. Now with COVID, especially, my parents would obviously like me to be back because I honestly don't know if I'll ever see my family again, which is a very hard place to be in life. Before COVID, I think my parents were both happy and unhappy. I mean, they would obviously want me to be near them, but they're also very happy what I'm doing with my life. I'm
Yes.
experiencing life. I've been all around the world. I've met tens of thousands of people from everywhere. I've got lots of friends from everywhere. I've created a lot. I've learned a lot. I'm still learning every day, and I'm still creating every day. So I think they're happy that my life hasn't been wasted.
What I was asking is that while you are choosing things to learn, will your parents say, oh no, you shouldn't learn that, you should learn this, or A is more better for you, don't do B? Will they be your like tour guide or tutor or something?
Absolutely not. They never tried to limit us in any way. Whatever we felt like doing, if we wanted to do it, they would either pay classes for it if we wanted to take classes, or not pay classes for it if we didn't want to take classes for it. We were absolutely free to choose what we wanted to do, what we were interested in. I think my parents have never said no to me in my whole life.
That is so sweet. Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I think there is good and bad with everything because if nobody ever says no to you, you do end up lacking some kind of discipline. You have to train yourself with that later in life because life does take discipline and learning things and doing things does take discipline. But my parents never gave me any kind of pressure. They didn't care about my grades in school. They never asked me to see my grades.
Really?
Not once. No, they honestly didn't care.
I like
But
this. I really like this.